the robbers burned down his barn. They didn't know his buffalo rifle was ready at dawn. Elias Turner was the kind of man people noticed only after they had passed him by. He was quiet, steady, and gentle in his movements, like someone who understood the world through patience rather than speed. He lived on a wide, open piece of land where the wind traveled freely, brushing across tall grasses that whispered like old friends sharing secrets. His farmhouse stood a little distance from the main road, simple but sturdy, painted a soft white that glowed warmly in the sunlight. People who visited said the place felt calm, almost comforting, like stepping into a story where time slowed down. Elias had chosen this quiet life after years spent traveling across the frontier. He rarely spoke about those days, not because they were dark or painful, but simply because he believed the past belonged where it was, behind him. Most of the neighbors only knew him as the peaceful farmer who shared seeds in the spring and fresh vegetables in the summer. They knew that he helped mend fences when storms blew through, and that he never turned away a traveler who needed a drink of water or a moment's rest. They knew he worked hard from sunrise to sundown, taking care of his fields, his cattle, and the large weathered barn that stood proudly near the east side of his property. What they did not know, because he never said it, was how much effort he put into keeping his life simple and safe. Inside his home, the rooms were clean and organized, nothing luxurious, nothing fancy, just the tools and comforts a man needed to live well. A handmade quilt lay across his bed, sewn by his late mother. A stack of books rested on a small wooden table near the window, where he liked to sit in the evenings and read while the orange glow of the sunset filled the sky. His kitchen always smelled faintly of fresh bread or warm stew, depending on the season. The fireplace, though not lit every day, held a sense of quiet strength. Above that fireplace rested something very important to Elias, an old buffalo rifle. It was polished, clean, and carefully kept, not because he expected trouble, but because he believed in taking care of everything he owned. The rifle had been with him for years, long before he ever dreamed of owning a farm. It had traveled with him on long journeys, through forests and open plains, across rivers and mountains. Even though he had no need to use it anymore, he respected it as a reminder of lessons learned and skills earned through time and experience. To him, the rifle symbolized discipline, responsibility, and readiness, not aggression. Every morning, Elias followed the same routine. He woke before the sun, when the sky was still a deep blue and the air felt cool and fresh. He would wash his face with cold water from a basin, dress in simple clothes, and step outside to greet the day. Sometimes, if he paused and listened closely, he could hear the soft call of owls returning to their nests, or the gentle rustle of leaves as the first light brushed across them. He loved these quiet moments. They made him feel connected to everything around him. The barn was always his first stop. It was large and sturdy, built with thick wooden beams and a tall roof that protected everything inside. This barn was more than just a place for tools and feed. It was the heart of his farm. Whenever he walked toward it, he felt a sense of purpose. Inside, he kept sacks of grain, farming equipment, stored hay, and other supplies he needed for the long seasons. He took great pride in keeping everything organized. If anyone had walked in, they would have seen rows and shelves neatly arranged, each item exactly where it belonged. Elias had built part of the barn himself, working slowly over several months. He remembered sanding each wooden board until it felt smooth beneath his fingers. He remembered lifting beams with the help of neighbors who gladly came when he asked. He remembered painting the doors a deep, warm red so the barn would stand out against the green of the fields. Every nail, every hinge, every board meant something to him. It represented hard work, shared effort, and the beginning of the peaceful life he had always wanted. Outside the barn, a small group of cattle grazed lazily. They trusted Elias completely, and he often said they were better listeners than most people he'd met. He talked to them while he worked. Nothing profound, just small comments about the weather or the day ahead. The cows responded with soft, familiar sounds that made him smile. Caring for them taught him patience and reminded him of the importance of daily routines. Neighbors often said Elias had a quiet strength. He never raised his voice, never rushed, and never allowed himself to grow frustrated over small things. When fences needed repair, he mended them one plank at a time. When storms knocked down branches, he collected them calmly and stacked them neatly for firewood. If a tool broke, he fixed it with careful hands. People admired him, even if they didn't always understand him. Some wondered why he lived alone, why he never married, or why he chose such a quiet life after years of traveling. Elias simply smiled when asked. To him, every person had a story, and his happened to be one built on peaceful days, honest work, and gratitude for the land he called home. Even though he rarely talked about his past, there were signs that he carried knowledge and experience others did not. He could read the weather by studying the sky and the behavior of birds. He could follow trails through the woods without losing his way. He never forgot to check small details, like whether the barn door was firmly latched or the lanterns were properly filled. He moved with the confidence of someone who had learned the importance of preparation. Still, Elias never made his past seem mysterious. He simply chose not to dwell on it. His present life, filled with sunlight, open land, and the steady rhythm of chores, was exactly what he wanted. He enjoyed helping neighbors repair their tools or sharing stories during winter gatherings. He enjoyed teaching children how to plant seeds or carve small wooden toys. He enjoyed watching the seasons change, the bright greens of spring, the golden colors of summer, the rich reds and oranges of autumn, and the soft whites of winter. His land shaped him, and he shaped it in return. When he planted crops, he did so with care, making sure each row was even and each seed placed with intention. During harvest season, he worked long hours but never complained. The reward of seeing his hard work turned into food and nourishment made everything worth it. He often shared extra produce with families who needed it, insisting that good fortune should always be shared. Though he lived alone, Elias was far from lonely. He found companionship in the animals he cared for, in the whispering wind, in the shifting colors of the sky. At night, when the stars appeared in endless patterns overhead, he felt grateful for the quiet life he had built. He believed that peace was not something one found by chance. It was something created slowly, intentionally, through small choices made every day. The people in the nearby town spoke kindly of him. They trusted him, relied on him, and respected him. Children waved when he drove his wagon down the main road. Shopkeepers greeted him by name. The local pastor often said, Elias had a calm spirit, someone who brought steadiness wherever he went. Even travelers who met him only once remembered his warm smile and soft-spoken nature. Elias never thought of himself as special. He believed anyone could live a simple, honest life if they chose to. But what he did not realize was how deeply his kindness touched those around him. When someone needed help, he offered it without hesitation. When someone felt discouraged, he lifted their spirits with quiet encouragement. When the community gathered for seasonal celebrations, he was always there, participating with gentle enthusiasm. Life on the frontier could be unpredictable, but Elias managed it with a balance of caution and optimism. He knew how to stay prepared without letting worry take over. This was why he maintained his tools so carefully and kept his supplies well stocked. It was also why he continued to take good care of his old buffalo rifle, because taking care of things was part of who he was. To him, readiness and peace lived side by side, supporting each other like old friends. For Elias, every day was a chance to appreciate something small. The warm glow of the morning sun on the barn roof, the soft lowing of cattle as they greeted him, the feel of cool soil between his fingers as he planted new seeds, the quiet crackle of the fireplace in the evening. These simple joys shaped his world. He believed life did not need to be fast or complicated to be meaningful. It only needed to be lived with intention, gratitude, and care. This was the life Elias Turner cherished, the life he built with his own hands, step by step, choice by choice. A life rooted in calmness, steadiness, and a deep respect for the land. A life he hoped would remain peaceful for many years to come. Elias Turner had always trusted the natural rhythm of the land, and most days passed quietly, just as he hoped they would. But as autumn deepened and the evenings grew cooler, he noticed something different in the air. It was nothing sharp or alarming, just a subtle sense that change was on its way. Travelers had been passing through the area more often than usual, some looking for work, some moving from one town to another, and some simply searching for a warm place to rest as the days grew shorter. The neighbors mentioned this increase in visitors during small conversations at the general store or after church gatherings. No one felt worried. The newcomers seemed friendly enough. But everyone agreed the region had become busier. Elias listened quietly, taking mental notes. He did not judge anyone who traveled from place to place. He had once lived that life himself, wandering with nothing but a bedroll and a map. Still, he believed in staying aware of his surroundings, not out of fear, but out of respect for the land he worked so hard to maintain. One late afternoon, as golden sunlight stretched across the fields, Elias noticed a group of travelers walking along the distant road that curved around his property. They carried light packs and moved with an easy, unhurried pace. He watched them for a moment, wondering where they were headed, then returned to his chores. People often walk that road, and he wished them well, even if he never met them. As the days passed, the group appeared again now and then. Sometimes they paused to rest near the edge of the woods. Sometimes they simply passed by without stopping. Elias didn't mind their presence. He even considered walking down to greet them one day, but each time he was caught up with caring for his animals or repairing something around the farm. Besides, he preferred letting visitors approach him when they wished. He believed kindness should be offered freely, not forced. One evening, after finishing supper, Elias stepped outside to enjoy the fresh night air. The sky was a deep blue sprinkled with stars, and the moon glowed softly above the fields. He stood on his porch for a long time, breathing in the cool air, listening to the gentle sounds of crickets and the distant rustle of leaves. Inside his barn, the animals shifted comfortably, their quiet sounds reassuring him that all was well. But that night, something unusual happened. A faint orange flicker appeared near the edge of the woods where the travelers often rested. Elias narrowed his eyes, concerned but not alarmed. It looked like a small campfire. Campfires were normal for travelers, especially on cool nights, but the wind had picked up earlier that evening. He hoped they were keeping the fire controlled. Elias considered walking out to check on them, but he did not want to intrude. He also trusted that travelers with experience knew how to handle a simple fire safely. So he returned indoors, warmed himself by the hearth, and read until the last light faded from his lamp. He fell asleep peacefully, unaware that a small mistake was unfolding outside. Later that night, a stronger gust of wind swept across the fields. The air was dry from several rainless weeks, and the grasses near the woods had become crisp. The travelers' campfire, though small and not intended to cause harm, flickered under the wind's pressure. A few tiny sparks lifted upward and drifted outward before anyone noticed. Most extinguished immediately, falling harmlessly to the ground. But one spark floated farther, carried by the rising breeze. It landed in a patch of dry grass, glowing faintly. The grass warmed slowly, then brighter, until a small smolder began, so small that the travelers never noticed. They had been settling into their blankets, unaware that the wind had shifted. The faint warmth in the grass crept forward, gentle but persistent. It was not loud or dramatic. It was simply the natural reaction of dry plants meeting unexpected heat. As the night continued, the smoldering patch grew warmer, spreading quietly across the ground. Eventually, the warmth reached the outer edge of Elias's field, where stored hay and dried grass lay scattered from the recent harvest. The heat brightened enough to produce soft crackles, the kind that might be mistaken for insects or shifting leaves. Slowly, a low glow formed, illuminating the nearby barn wall with a soft orange tint. Inside the farmhouse, Elias slept soundly. He turned once or twice, but sensed nothing unusual. His mind rested deeply, trusting the peacefulness of the world around him. But near the barn, the small glowing patch expanded. It was still gentle, still quiet. No loud noises, no chaos. Just a spreading warmth traveling where the wind guided it. The travelers in the woods remained unaware as well. They had packed their fire with dirt before resting, believing it fully out. They would never have imagined that a single spark escaped. By early morning, when the sky began to pale, Elias awoke with a strange feeling. Nothing alarming, just a sense that he should step outside earlier than usual. He dressed quickly, washed his face, and walked toward the barn with the intention of feeding the animals before sunrise. As he approached, he noticed something surprising, a thin line of smoke rising gently behind the barn wall. It wasn't thick or dark, but it was enough to catch his attention. Elias quickened his pace, not with fear, but with calm focus. He rounded the corner and discovered a warm patch along the ground where the dry grass had turned to ash. The barn's lower boards showed signs of blackened edges, but the warmth had not spread far. Elias took a deep breath. He understood immediately that this had not been intentional. No person would choose to cause such a reaction, especially on a calm night. This was simply an accident, a mix of wind, dry air, and perhaps a campfire that had not been fully cooled. Without wasting time, Elias fetched buckets of water and carefully wet the warm patches of ground. He checked every corner of the barn, making sure no hidden warmth remained. His movements were steady and confident. There was no panic in him, only responsibility. Years of experience had taught him the importance of acting without hesitation, but also without fear. When the last bit of smoldering ash was cooled, Elias sat on a nearby wooden stool and breathed deeply. The barn still stood strong, though a few boards would need replacing. The animals inside were safe and calm. The gentle morning light began to spread across the sky, painting everything in soft gold. Elias watched the horizon quietly, gathering his thoughts. He felt no anger, no frustration. Accidents happened, especially in the countryside, where nature sometimes behaved unpredictably. He believed the travelers in the woods had not meant for anything like this to occur. They probably had no idea it had even happened. For all he knew, they slept soundly, unaware that a stray spark had traveled farther than they expected. Later that morning, Elias walked out to the edge of his field where the travelers had rested the night before. The ground showed signs of footprints and a small circle of cooled ash where their campfire had been. He crouched down and studied the area. The travelers had clearly tried to put out their fire responsibly. They had piled dirt over it, leaving no glowing embers in sight. The spark that escaped had simply been one of those rare things that happen when wind and dryness combine at the wrong moment. Elias stood up and brushed the dirt from his hands. There was no reason to search for the travelers or confront them. He wished them good fortune, wherever they were now. Perhaps they were already on the next road, continuing their journey toward a new town or a new beginning. He hoped they found kindness along the way. When he returned to his farm, Elias inspected the barn again. He made a list of the boards he needed to replace and the chores that would take priority in the coming days. He did not dwell on the near miss or what could have happened. Instead, he focused on the positive. The barn was still standing, the animals were unharmed, and the land remained peaceful. He spent the afternoon repairing what he could and brushing away the ashes left on the ground. As he worked, he felt a renewed appreciation for his home. The small event reminded him that life could change unexpectedly, even when people meant no harm. It reminded him to stay prepared, to stay attentive, and to continue caring for his land with the same dedication he always had. Through it all, Elias carried no resentment. He chose understanding instead, believing firmly that kindness was the strongest foundation a person could build their life upon. And as the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow over his fields, Elias felt grateful for his safety, for his home, and for the simple truth that even unexpected moments could be faced with calm and grace. The morning after Elias repaired the small damage around his barn, he woke earlier than usual. Something within him felt alert, not worried, but aware. Like a soft reminder from nature that attention was important, he stretched his arms, rubbed the sleep from his eyes, and stepped outside to greet the fresh air. The dawn sky glowed with soft pinks and pale oranges, and a cool breeze brushed against his face. It was a peaceful morning, one that seemed to whisper that a new chapter was quietly unfolding. Even though he had fixed most of the warm patches near the barn, Elias still wanted to check everything once more. He believed in being thorough. So before preparing breakfast, he walked toward the barn with slow, steady steps. The grass felt cool beneath his boots, and the soft mist rising from the fields gave the farm a dreamlike quality. The barn stood solid, touched by the gentle morning light. A few birds perched on the roof, chirping cheerfully, unaware that anything unusual had happened the night before. Elias placed his hand against the wooden boards. The wood was cool, perfectly safe. He ran his fingers along the edges of each plank, checking for warmth or cracks he might have missed earlier. Everything seemed normal. The barn, despite the small scare, remained strong and dependable. Elias couldn't help but feel grateful. It reminded him why he worked so hard, why he remained prepared, and why he valued calm thinking. Life always found ways to test people, but those tests didn't have to be frightening. Sometimes they were simply reminders to stay mindful. After finishing his inspection, Elias walked back to the farmhouse. Inside, the fireplace was still warm from the night before. The old buffalo rifle rested above it, polished and steady, just like always. Elias glanced at it thoughtfully. He had taken care of that rifle for years, not because he expected trouble, but because he believed in caring for the things that had once helped him. To him, readiness was not about expecting harm. It was about respecting the skills he had learned and keeping them alive in case they were ever needed for peaceful protection or responsible use. Elias decided to take the rifle down that morning. not to use it, but to clean it. It had been a while since he last polished the metal or checked the wooden stock for cracks. He brought it to the kitchen table, laid a soft cloth underneath, and began his careful routine. His movements were gentle and practiced, as if he were tending to a cherished heirloom. While he worked, he thought about the past few days, the travelers passing through, the unexpected spark, the quiet repairs. He didn't feel unsettled, only thoughtful. Sometimes life sent little signals, nudging a person to pay closer attention. Perhaps the spark had been one of those signals. Perhaps it was reminding him not to grow too comfortable, to balance his peaceful life with awareness, not fear, never fear, but mindful observation. When the rifle was cleaned and safely placed back on its mount, Elias stepped outside again. The sun was rising higher, painting the fields with warm, golden light. Dewdrops sparkled like tiny gems on the blades of grass. The cattle grazed lazily, lifting their heads when Elias approached. He patted a few of them gently, speaking to them in his soft, familiar voice. He decided to walk up to the ridge behind his farm, a place he often visited to clear his mind. The ridge offered a beautiful view of the valley below, where the main trail curved like a ribbon. From there, he could see travelers passing by, or wagons rolling along the horizon. He enjoyed standing there, breathing the crisp air and admiring the scenery. As he reached the top of the ridge, Elias paused and let his eyes sweep across the land. Everything looked calm. Birds soared above the valley, drifting effortlessly with the wind. Far in the distance, he spotted something. Small figures moving slowly along the trail. It was the group of travelers again. He recognized their shape and their easy pace. They appeared cheerful this morning. One carried a walking stick. Another held a wide hat to shield their eyes from the rising sun. They were chatting with one another, their movements relaxed. Elias watched them with a peaceful expression. If they ever needed water or directions, he would gladly help. He never blamed them for the spark near the woods. He knew it had been an accident. As he continued observing the valley, he noticed something else. A wagon farther down the trail that seemed to be slowing. The way it moved suggested the horse might be tired or the wheels slightly stuck. Elias leaned forward, curious. He watched as the travelers reached the wagon and paused beside it. It appeared they were offering help to the driver. The scene warmed Elias's heart. It reminded him that most people, no matter where they came from, carried kindness within them. He stood at the ridge for several minutes, appreciating the calm morning unfolding before him. The land stretched endlessly, bathed in early sunlight. The world felt open and welcoming. Yet, even in the stillness, Elias felt a quiet spark of responsibility. It wasn't a heavy feeling, but a gentle awareness, like a whisper saying, "Stay prepared, stay alert in a peaceful way." After a while, Elias made his way back down the ridge. He had a full day of chores ahead, mending fences, checking water troughs, preparing winter feed, and tending to his vegetable patch. He enjoyed the work, even when it was tiring. He believed labor of the hands strengthened the heart. He spent the midday repairing a section of the barn's outer wall, replacing 2 boards that had been slightly darkened by the warm patch. He worked slowly and carefully, measuring each board twice and cutting with precision. As he hammered the nails in, he hummed a soft tune his mother used to sing while cooking. The memory filled him with warmth. Throughout the afternoon, Elias found himself glancing toward the ridge occasionally, thinking about the travelers. He wondered if they knew how close the spark had come to his barn. He didn't expect them to know. Life was filled with moments people never realized they were part of. Still, He wished them well and hoped their journey would be smooth. Later in the day, as the sun began its slow descent, Elias prepared a small meal and sat on his porch. The sky was painted with streaks of orange and lavender, creating a peaceful glow. He ate quietly, appreciating the stillness. The air carried gentle sounds from distant lands, the rumble of a wagon wheel, the laughter of people passing far down the trail, the comforting rustle of leaves in the breeze. Elias picked up his old leather journal, a book he used to record important thoughts. He wrote about the spark, the repairs, and the sense of awareness he felt growing inside him. He didn't write out of worry. He wrote out of reflection. Words helped him understand the gentle nudges life offered. As he closed the journal, a calm conviction settled within him. He realized that although his life was peaceful, he still had a responsibility to stay attentive. Nature was beautiful, but it demanded respect. Life was gentle, but it required readiness. Peace did not mean ignoring the world. Peace meant facing it with clarity and wisdom. Later that evening, Elias returned once more to the mantel where the buffalo rifle rested. He touched it lightly, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of the disciplined, thoughtful man he had become. He didn't need to use it. He only needed to keep it ready, just like he kept his home, tools, and spirit prepared. When night finally settled over the farm, Elias stood outside for a moment, looking at the stars that sparkled like diamonds in the dark sky. He breathed deeply, feeling a sense of quiet strength within him. He had faced many moments in life, some challenging, some unexpected, but each one had shaped him into a person who trusted calm thinking. He whispered a gentle wish into the night, that his home would remain safe, that travelers would pass through without trouble, and that the land would continue offering its gifts generously. And with that, he returned inside, feeling at peace. The sense of readiness he felt that day was not about expecting harm. It was about respecting the balance of life, understanding that quiet moments often carried important lessons, and knowing that being prepared allowed him to protect what he loved in thoughtful, responsible ways. Elias drifted to sleep that night feeling confident, calm, and deeply connected to the land he cherished. Dawn would come again soon, bringing new light, new opportunities, and perhaps new surprises. But whatever arrived with the sunrise, he knew he would greet it with steady hands and a peaceful heart. The next morning arrived with a soft glow that slowly spread across the horizon. The light touched the fields gently, making the dew on the grass sparkle like tiny stars lying close to the earth. Elias Turner stepped outside his farmhouse, breathing in the clean morning air. It carried the smell of damp soil, fresh breeze, and a hint of pine from the nearby woods. Everything felt calm, yet Elias sensed that the day might bring something meaningful. He walked toward the barn, greeting the animals inside with quiet words spoken out of habit and affection. They responded with soft sounds that made him smile. He checked the repaired boards again, running his hand across the smooth new wood. It comforted him to see the barn standing strong and safe. His repairs had held well. Before beginning his usual chores, Elias decided to walk up to the ridge once more. Something in him wanted to watch the valley that morning. Perhaps it was the peaceful rhythm of the sunrise, or perhaps it was a quiet intuition, a gentle feeling that he should pay attention to the world beyond his own fields. The ridge path was familiar beneath his boots. As he climbed, he could hear the soft flutter of bird wings and the distant hum of insects greeting the day. When he reached the top, the valley stretched before him like a painted landscape, a long road winding through open land, pockets of trees scattered like resting giants, and far beyond, the faint outline of another small settlement. Elias stood there for a moment, just absorbing the beauty. He had always believed that watching the sunrise from high ground allowed a person to see life with clearer eyes. And today, as he scanned the trail below, he noticed movement. Several figures he had seen before. It was the group of travelers again. They walked along the path slowly, looking relaxed but perhaps a little tired from their journey. Something was different this time, though. The travelers kept looking toward one another and then toward the road behind them. They didn't look scared or uneasy, only thoughtful, as if they were trying to solve a small puzzle together. One of them held a map unfolded awkwardly against the wind. Another pointed toward the horizon, and the rest leaned in, trying to understand the direction. Elias felt a soft chuckle rise in his chest. He recognized that kind of confusion. Roads on the frontier were not always easy to follow. Some split unexpectedly, some twisted around hills without warning, and some disappeared after storms. He knew the land well enough to guess that the travelers might be unsure which way to go next. He considered walking down and offering help. But the distance was far, and the group seemed to be talking calmly among themselves. Still, he remained where he was for a while, watching them with gentle curiosity. As he did, something else caught his attention. Farther down the valley, a wagon approached at a slow, steady pace. A man sat at the front, holding the reins loosely. The horse pulling the wagon walked carefully, as if carrying a heavy load. The wagon's wheels moved smoothly, but the man seemed to glance around often, as though he were searching for something or someone. When the wagon reached the travelers, it stopped. Elias couldn't hear their words from the ridge, but their gestures told the story clearly enough. The travelers greeted the wagon driver politely. The driver nodded and pointed down the trail, and the travelers gathered around him as if asking questions. Even from afar, Elias could sense that they were all trying to help one another. It warmed him. These small moments, strangers meeting, exchanging guidance, sharing kindness without hesitation, reminded him why he believed so strongly in the goodness of people. After several minutes, the travelers waved to the wagon driver and continued walking with clearer direction. The driver tipped his hat and carried on, guiding his wagon steadily toward the next town. Elias watched until both the wagon and the travelers disappeared from view. He let out a slow breath, feeling peaceful. Life, he thought, was full of such simple meetings. Simple, yet meaningful. Even when unexpected things happened, like the spark near his barn, most people in the world remained thoughtful, kind, and responsible. The travelers had meant no harm, and today they had helped someone else just as easily as they might have helped Elias if he had needed it. But the morning still felt like it held more. On his way down the ridge, Elias noticed something unusual. A long, thin trail of dust rising from the far road, as though several horses or people were traveling together. He paused, shading his eyes with his hand. The dust cloud grew slowly larger. It wasn't hurried or frantic. The movement was steady, like a group taking their time. Whoever they were simply making their way along the trail. Elias watched with mild curiosity, waiting for the figures to come into better view. Eventually, he saw them, several riders moving in a loose formation. They were dressed in simple traveling clothes, and each carried bags tied behind their saddles. One rider waved at another, and laughter seemed to float through the air, even though Elias could not hear it. The group looked cheerful, like a family or friends exploring the countryside. They posed no sign of trouble. Elias smiled. He enjoyed watching people travel through the valley. It reminded him of his younger days, when he had explored the frontier with wide eyes and endless curiosity. The riders paused for a moment near a creek that cut through the valley. They dismounted, let their horses drink, and stretched their legs. One of them pointed toward Elias's farm, perhaps admiring the land or wondering what it would feel like to live so peacefully. Another picked up a smooth stone from the creek and tossed it playfully. The whole scene felt light-hearted. Elias continued down from the ridge, thinking about how different people brought different energy to the land. Some brought excitement, others brought questions, and some, like the travelers from the woods, brought gentle reminders that life was unpredictable but still filled with good intentions. As Elias returned to his chores, he noticed something on the ground near the barn door. It was a small cloth pouch tied with a string. He had not seen it there earlier. When he bent down to pick it up, he realized it belonged to the travelers. The pouch contained a few buttons, a folded piece of cloth, and a small wooden charm carved with care. Perhaps it had fallen from someone's pocket when they passed close to his field the previous day. Instead of feeling bothered, Elias smiled warmly. He tucked the pouch safely into his coat pocket. If the travelers passed by again, he would return it to them. If not, he would hold onto it until their path brought them back someday. Frontier life often led people to cross paths more than once. Later that afternoon, while tending to the fence near the trail, Elias spotted movement from the corner of his eye. When he looked up, he saw one of the travelers from the familiar group walking toward him with a friendly smile. The traveler approached slowly, waving politely. Elias lifted his hand in greeting. "Good day," the traveler said warmly. "I hope I'm not bothering you." "Not at all," Elias replied with his usual gentle voice. "How can I help you?" The traveler explained that they were indeed the group who had rested near the woods earlier in the week. They had been walking toward Elias's farm, not out of concern but out of gratitude. They wanted to thank him for having such a welcoming-looking homestead, which had encouraged them to rest nearby safely. They apologized, though they had no idea about the spark. They simply wished to show appreciation for the landowner whose fields had given them a peaceful night's rest. Elias listened kindly. He felt no anger, only understanding. He told the traveler that the land was meant to be shared respectfully, and that he was glad it had provided comfort. When the traveler turned to leave, Elias remembered the pouch. He pulled it from his pocket and handed it over gently. The traveler's eyes widened in surprise and delight. "I didn't even realize this was missing," he said gratefully. "Thank you. This charm belonged to my father. I'm very glad to have it back." Eyes nodded. "Things often find their way home," he said simply. The traveler smiled, thanked him again, and walked back toward the group waiting on the trail. Elias watched them depart with a feeling of quiet fulfillment spreading through his chest. Kindness had been exchanged naturally, without planning or expectation, and it felt right. As evening fell, Elias sat on his porch once more, reflecting on the day. He realized something important. Sometimes, life prepared a person not for danger, but for understanding. His readiness, his careful habits, his thoughtful nature, his awareness had not been meant for conflict. They had been meant to steady him, to guide him through unexpected moments with clarity and calmness. He felt grateful for that. When he finally stepped inside his home, the peaceful glow of lamplight filled the room. He glanced at the buffalo rifle above the fireplace, feeling no tension, only appreciation. It symbolized his discipline, his past, and his respect for preparedness. But more than anything, it reminded him that wisdom and calmness were always stronger than fear. Elias went to sleep with a gentle heart that night. The world around him was wide, unpredictable, and filled with countless stories. But his farm, his choices, and his quiet strength had helped shape a day filled with understanding rather than worry. and he knew deep down that the dawn would bring more gentle lessons with it. In the days that followed, life on Elias Turner's farm returned to its familiar rhythm, yet something inside him felt quietly renewed. The sun rose and set just as it always had. The wind carried the same soft whispers across the fields, and the cattle grazed peacefully in their pasture. But Elias felt a deeper sense of connection to the land, to the people who passed by, and to the gentle lessons life had offered him in recent days. Every morning he stepped outside with a fresh sense of gratitude. Even the simplest moments, like the chill of dawn brushing against his skin or the soft crunch of grass beneath his boots, felt more meaningful now. He found himself pausing more often to admire the way sunlight shimmered on dew, or how the sky shifted from pale pink to bright blue. The world had not changed, yet somehow he felt more awake to its quiet beauty. One morning while feeding the animals, Elias noticed how calm everything seemed. The cows moved slowly, contentedly, their warm breath rising in small white clouds as they chewed. The horses stamped their hooves gently in the straw. Even the chickens clucked softly, pecking at the ground with peaceful determination. Elias took his time tending to each one, speaking softly, encouraging them as though they understood every word. Later, he walked to the barn and inspected the repairs he had made earlier. The new boards blended neatly into the structure, and the barn looked as sturdy and dependable as ever. Elias ran his hand across the wood, feeling a sense of relief and accomplishment. What had started as a small scare had become a gentle reminder of the importance of care, attention, and readiness. He also felt grateful for the unexpected kindness from the travelers, the ones who had passed near the woods and later returned to thank him. Their visit had warmed him in a way he hadn't expected, but it touched him that they had come back, not because they had done anything wrong, but simply to offer their appreciation. Their small gesture, combined with the safe return of the lost pouch, made Elias realize how meaningful even brief connections could be. People crossed paths for many reasons, he thought. Some met to share a moment of help, some to exchange smiles, and some simply to remind each other that the world held more goodness than one might think. Elias believed firmly that every meeting, no matter how small, taught a lesson. These thoughts followed him through each day as he worked his fields, mended fences, and prepared his home for the coming winter. He found himself thinking often about how life had guided him, sometimes through calm stretches and sometimes through unexpected moments. None of those moments felt frightening now. Instead, they felt like gentle nudges that shaped him into someone wiser, steadier, and more understanding. A few days later, Elias heard voices drifting from the road. When he looked up from where he was repairing a tool, he saw a wagon approaching. The wooden wheels creaked softly, and the horse pulling it moved at an easy pace. On the wagon sat a familiar face, the wagon driver the travelers had helped earlier. The driver waved when he saw Elias, and Elias lifted his hand in return. The wagon came to a slow stop near the edge of the farm. "Good morning," the driver called out warmly. "I thought I'd stop by and thank you. Those travelers who helped me spoke highly of you." Elias smiled modestly. "I'm glad they were able to help you. They seemed like good people."
They were, the driver agreed.
They also mentioned how peaceful your land was, said it felt like a place made for calm living. Elias nodded, appreciating the compliment. "I do my best to keep it that way." The driver pulled a small sack from beside him in the wagon. "I brought you something," he said. "Just a few extra supplies I had, some flour, some apples, a bit of honey. Thought you might make good use of them." Elias felt touched by the gesture. He did not expect gifts, but he knew kindness traveled freely when shared with sincerity. He accepted the sack with a grateful nod. "You're very generous," he said. "Thank you. Generosity travels both ways," the driver replied with a smile. "You might not know it, but word of your calm nature and helpful spirit reaches people." Elias chuckled softly. "I don't know about that," but the driver insisted with a nod before guiding his horse forward and continuing on the trail. After the wagon disappeared into the distance, Elias stood quietly, reflecting on the man's words. He had never been the type to think of himself as influential or widely known. He preferred blending into the peaceful rhythm of the countryside, but it warmed him to know that even his small actions, steady, quiet, often unnoticed, had touched the lives of others. He carried the sack of supplies to his kitchen and placed it on the table. The apples were crisp and red, the honey golden, and the flour neatly packed. He decided he would bake a pie later and share a portion with a neighbor. Kindness, he believed, should always be passed along. The next few days unfolded gently, full of familiar chores and calm discoveries. Elias trimmed branches near the farmhouse, stacked firewood for winter, and organized his tools. While doing so, he often thought about the travelers and how unpredictably paths crossed. He wondered where they were now, whether they had reached their next town, whether they had found warm places to rest, whether they had met even more people on their journey who offered smiles and kindness. One afternoon, while he was mending a piece of fencing, Elias felt a shift in the air. A soft breeze swept through the valley, carrying a pleasant chill. He looked up and saw clouds drifting lazily across the sky, shaped like soft cotton. Everything felt peaceful. Yet this peace did not make him complacent. It made him appreciative. He walked back toward his farmhouse and paused in front of the door. For a moment, he gazed at the buffalo rifle resting above the fireplace through the window. It had remained untouched since he last cleaned it. He knew it would stay untouched for a long while. It did not symbolize danger or conflict to him, only readiness, discipline, and history. But in his heart, Elias felt that the lessons he had learned recently were not about using the rifle at all. They were about awareness, kindness, understanding, connection, responsibility, and peace. That evening, Elias baked an apple pie with the ingredients the wagon driver had given him. The warm smell drifted through the house, filling it with sweetness. He enjoyed the simple pleasure of it, the way the crust turned golden, the way the apples softened perfectly. After letting it cool, he cut a generous piece to take to his nearest neighbor, a widow who lived 2 fields away. As he walked the narrow path toward her home, Elias felt the air cooling around him. The sun dipped behind the hills, casting a soft orange glow over the land. He felt calm, grounded, and grateful to be part of a community where acts of kindness flowed gently from person to person. The widow welcomed him warmly, surprised but delighted by the gift. They shared a short conversation about the harvest, the weather, and the coming winter. She thanked him again before he walked back home under a sky filled with stars. When Elias returned to his porch, he sat quietly, listening to the night sounds. An owl hooted softly in the distance. Crickets chirped in steady rhythm. The air carried the comforting scent of wood and soil. Elias leaned back, watching the stars twinkle one by one. He realized something then, something gentle but powerful. Even though the spark near his barn had been unexpected, the days that followed had brought new understanding, new connections, and new appreciation for the world around him. It had helped him see the depth of his community, the kindness of strangers, and the importance of staying ready not for conflict, but for life itself. His days were peaceful, and he hoped they would always remain that way. Yet he also knew that if life brought challenges again, small or large, expected or unexpected. He would meet them with the same calm strength he had shown this time. Not with fear, but with steady hands. Not with worry, but with understanding. Before going inside, Elias whispered a small wish into the night, as he sometimes did. He wished for safety for the travelers, for comfort for his neighbors, for peace across the valley, and for wisdom in all days to come. Then he stood up, walked into his farmhouse, and gently closed the door. The lamplight inside cast a warm glow across the room, and the buffalo rifle above the fireplace reflected a soft glimmer, not a symbol of danger, but a quiet reminder that readiness and peace could live side by side. The barn was safe, the land was calm, the world around him seemed full of gentle possibilities. And as he settled down for the night, he knew that whatever the dawn might bring, he would greet it with the same steady heart he always carried. For a man like Elias Turner, peace was not just the quietness of the land, it was the way he chose to walk through life with patience, awareness, kindness, and unwavering calm.